Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel where you will be able to meet Kristin and Nii on today. I actually started a Love Abroad series in Ghana. I went to Ghana in December and January for the year of the return. And once I returned home, I said, why not do a series on Love Abroad in Ghana because it's Valentine's month or the month of love. And so that's why I decided to do this series. And first up on our series is Kristin and Nii. And so a little bit of background. Hello, how are you
Hi.
all?
Good.
Good.
So I'm gonna tell a little bit before we get to Kristin and Nee's story. I'll tell you a little bit about me and Kristin. We both went to Howard University. Woo woo.
Hey,
That's,
you.
yes, you know. There you go. Howard University is a historically Black college. So me and Kristen met years ago during spring break. They have something called alternative spring break, and we both were chosen to go to Chicago, where we all know, unfortunately, there's lots of gun violence and different things like that. So we went as students to combat the gun violence among youth. So that's kind of how we met a couple years ago. And then we reconnected again to do this love series on Ghana Abroad. Or Love Abroad, I'm sorry. So I'm super excited to have them on. So we're just going to interview, we're just going to have a conversation about love. So if you want to love and you're interested in dating somebody abroad, let's hear about Kristin and Nee's story. So Nii, how are you doing? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm enjoying myself. Marriage is good.
Marriage is good. That's a good thing to hear because I'm pretty sure people are very, very interested in this story. So let's jump right into it. So tell me, Chris, I'm going to start with you. What was your purpose of going to Ghana?
So I initially went to Ghana for a legal study abroad program by Fordham University. And so they allowed other students outside of Fordham's University to come and join into the program. So I was actually attending Florida State, but I applied for this program that was hosted by Fordham, and I was accepted. And I spent almost 3 months in Ghana.
Okay, that's super, super cool. So I love Ghana. Ghana is like my favorite place. And so this kind of brings back memories because I started off in Ghana as well. Way back in 2007, I studied abroad and I was there for about 6 weeks. So that's exciting that you also studied abroad. So see, you never know
Yeah.
what people have in common. Even though mine was 10 years earlier, Kristen got a chance to do the same thing. So let's get into this story. So how did you actually meet me?
So actually, there is this long story that kind of, puts me in Ghana a day later than all the rest of the participants. But long story short, I end up not being able to take the flight when I was supposed to arrive in Accra. I end up arriving in Accra a day later, and I come late, and everybody else has arrived. So I'm there. I'm new, and Nii didn't welcome me. He was supposed to be kind of like the assistant to the program and welcome everybody. And so I get in and I see him, and I'm like, he hasn't said anything to me. That's odd. And so then we actually went to our first travel destination or site in Accra. We actually went to what is the lighthouse?
The lighthouse, yeah.
Yeah, we went to the lighthouse that's in Jamestown. And so I'm walking outside of the lighthouse at Jamestown, and he comes up to me, which he later revealed that he was very nervous to speak to me, which is why he hadn't spoke to me at all that day. So he comes up next to me while I'm walking on the sidewalk, and he's like, "How was your flight?" And I was like, "Oh, it was good." And then I get ready to get into this long conversation and tell him how it was. And then someone calls him, like someone from the team calls him, and then he has to quickly just leave in the middle of our conversation. And I'm like, that was rude.
Okay, well, let me cut off to Nii. So tell me, how was it when you first met Kristin? What was your initial reaction to her?
So here's the thing. I think Chris was different, and I always say that to people that I've had I don't usually say that often, but people we have very close, relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
I actually usually tell them that when Chris came for some reasons, I don't know why she came the next day, but she stood out. She was very different. So when I saw her the morning, when I came to the campus and I saw her, for some reasons, I don't know, I couldn't talk to her. But I'm somebody who, I talk a lot. Honestly, I can talk to anybody I want to talk to. But I couldn't talk to this lady right here for some reasons. I couldn't talk to her throughout that morning until we went out. And I found a reason to at least say hello. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if I look back, now that we're married, I can say maybe it was something, from within that was kind of making, like was building something that you could look back and say, oh, okay, this was the reason why maybe it was a different feeling when I met her. Because I met a lot of other people from the same team earlier.
Okay, so we have a saying in America that says the cat caught your tongue. So it sounds like that's kind of what was going on. But that's interesting that's interesting to see that you were nervous, especially since you say that you were actually able to talk to people all the time. So tell me about how your relationship progressed while you were there during the 3 months. What were you guys? Were you guys just friends? Were you guys looking at each other in that type of way, or how did the relationship form while you were at your internship?
So just to backtrack a little bit more before we arrived there. Now, when we leave the lighthouse, we go to the mall that same day, to shop. And we're trying to separate everybody to see who can take who to go check out, exchange money and all of that, because that's the first time they're coming in. And for some reasons, I don't know what happened. I'm like, yeah, I'll take her. That's the first time for some reasons. And we happened to be walking and talking. She went to get some money from the ATM. And I'm like, let me show you the movies. I don't know why. At this time, I didn't have any intentions, nothing in mind at all. But things were just happening strangely, And I took her to the movies and I was like, yeah, we can come here and watch some movies sometime. Out of nowhere. So all of these things were happening. I'm sure it was.
I mean, I even told him, I was just kind of excited. So I was kind of telling everybody, I was like, yeah, so I'm going to be here for like, almost 3 months. And so, I think he kind of had that in the back of his mind too, that I would be there for a lot longer than other people.
So during the program, I mean, it was official work. It was a study abroad program. I was part of the team at the law school that is running the program. So it was business. And when I'm doing business, of course, when I'm working, I don't make pleasure with it. So we didn't have much engagement. If I meet her in the stairway, I say, hey, how you doing today? I meet her in class. I'm not part of the class, but I go there to check what's going on. I'm like, hey, how you doing? How was class? So stuff like that, back and forth until, but here's one thing I could say. Now, there was one night that, and this is the first time I'm actually sharing this. There was one night we decided to go out. So we're going out.
Nii, let me say. So let's warn our audience. This is exclusive information. So let's listen up. I'm intently want to hear what you have to say. So go ahead.
So one night we decided to go out. So we're going out with the professor. Then this lady that somebody had introduced Chris to before she came down.
Really?
Had come with some friends of hers to take Chris and some of her friends out beyond what we're trying to do as a group with the professor and everything. So I was like, well, why are they going to? I mean, this was none of my business really, but because Chris was part, I was like, why are they going to? I mean, what's happening? We're actually trying to go out. So they go out. All this while, I've been trying to get Chris, but I've not been able to get in touch with her. So they go and they tell us where they were. So myself and one other guy who's part of the team, we managed to find them. Again, it's none of my business really where they were going to. I followed them. I go to the place where they were. When I went, she wasn't at the table where they were sitting. And I asked the two ladies that were with her, who were also on the study abroad program, like, where's Chris? And they were like, oh, a guy went with her and they left. For some reasons, I was so upset. I'm telling you, like, there was nothing between us, but I was just upset. And the lady was like, whoa, why am I upset? So I just left there with the other guy and we left. So later, Chris came and she was telling me, oh, she had gone to the bathroom. And those ladies were just pulling my legs. But I can't understand why I was so upset when they told me that she had left with one other guy and we had nothing going on. I had not told her anything. There was nothing, but it was just, I don't know, something was just
So do you
moving.
think that that was the start of you feeling like you were liking her, or is that kind of where
Yes,
you feel like it all
yes.
began?
When I look back, I realized this is how it was all building and coming together until the point where I really realized that, well, I like this lady. And it was one day, everybody had left. Of course, the program had ended. They had all gone. Official duties are over. And she decided, of course, to stay longer. So in deciding to stay longer, of course, she doesn't know too many people. Myself and one other lady, somebody had introduced her to before coming to Ghana. So then it happened that, okay, I had time on my hands, so I was going to be able to take her around and show her a few places here and there. We had our own little experiences. So we went to this place in the, I think it's in Greater Accra, Akosombo. I'm sure you should know Akosombo. So we went to Akosombo. We're sitting by the Volta River. We're having a conversation. And in the course of the conversation, of course, it went very deep in trying to know ourselves better. All this while, there was nothing really going on, you know. We're trying to know ourselves better. And, you know, you ask people questions. She asked me questions and I asked her questions. And the genuineness in the way she was answering the questions, based on the questions I was asking very deep questions. Something, I was like, I don't know if it's love or whatever it was, but I really began to really have some likeness for her. And I remember on that day, I told her that if for some reasons we get together, I'm going to I'm going to make sure I never leave her. If we some way somehow happen to get together, I'm never going to leave her. I'm going to love her and prove a point to the world. Like I'll never, never, never leave her. I remember that day. That was the beginning of, I think, the love journey between us, because that's when something really began to happen. Like the real likeness began, you know, to occur. We built it from there.
Okay. So, Kristen, let's switch to you. So, Nee told his side of the story. So, tell me when you felt like, okay, this is the one, I'm really into him, and let's see how this can go further.
Yeah. So, I would say that day that he's referring to was also an emotional, you know, moment. And I felt really, really connected to him at that point in time. I think we both shed a few tears. And so,
Aww,
you know, I was
sweet.
like, wow.
Don't make me cry.
And that was, you know, that was the beginning of me really liking him and, you know, seeing where things could go, because prior to that, you know, I didn't really think that it could be more than just, you know, someone that I was going to know for the summer or something like that. So at that moment, I was like, okay, well, I like this guy. And so, you know, I wanted to be open. And so I was just very open to just experiencing different things and being in a different country. I'm like, I'm not going to close up. I'm just going to let fate have its way. And so, you know, a few more months went by, and I think he asked me to be official. And he made a point to say, well, you know, I'm serious. If you're serious, if you're not serious, just let me know, because then, you know, I can move on, because this is the type of thing that I want. I want a relationship with you, and not for this to be, you know, just something that you're not interested in fully. And so, you know, I, of course, said that I was serious about it as well. And after we spent more time together, I think there was one night where, you know, I told her that we had an argument, and, you know, we kind of went our separate ways. He went to another room, I went to another room. And after we had that argument, I was just like, wow, I think I just felt this deep hurt and I felt like I felt like I had hurt you. And, you know, I didn't like that feeling at all. It was just a different feeling that I had never felt before. To hurt someone that I felt this deep, strong connection to, I was like, wow, I was like, I must really love this guy. It was at that moment where I realized that I was in love, because when you love somebody and you care about their well-being more than you care about your own, it just was apparent to me that I had never felt that way before about someone. And so I immediately was like, oh, I'm not even thinking about guilt, or not even thinking about pride. Pride was pushed aside in that moment. I was like, I have to go apologize to him and, explain to him how I'm feeling in this moment, which I did. And I think I told him at that point. Maybe did I tell him at that point?
I mean, I don't.
Or later on, I revealed.
But when you say an argument, so people are clear. I mean, it's not just an argument. Of course, like somebody, some way, somehow wronging somebody through an argument. Exactly. You know how you can say some things that can be offensive. So we're clear. It's not just an argument and somebody apologizing for that. Exactly. And so that was what happened. Yeah, but it was a very strong moment. I believe that, of course, made a difference in the direction of our relationship. And again, I don't play. So right from the beginning, I try to establish some ground rules that, like, whatever we're about to get involved with, it has to be serious. Otherwise, we don't waste anybody's time to be involved with anything. Because there's the end, we should start with the end in mind. Okay, and we made that clear. So once we made that clear, anybody who made a commitment, we know we have something we're working towards.
Yeah. So tell me, what are your views on marriage or family? When you say from the beginning, because some people say I just want to date. Some people say my end goal is marriage. So what are your values on marriage? Were your parents married? Is that what you guys aspired to be? So yeah, explain a little bit about that.
So before we arrived at this point where I'm telling her that I really, would like to be with her, and of course, if it is possible for us to get married eventually as the end goal. Before now, we've been having a lot of very deep conversations about different things, because personally, I do a lot of self-development. So I listen to a lot of things which she now do, read a lot of different things, just to empower myself. So when I met her, one of the things we did towards this stage was we're trying to have deep conversations about our values and what we believe in and all of that. So that's what we were doing before we got to a point where I'm like, this is what I want. So if we're beginning anything official, we need to have the end in mind. Now, personally, my values in relationships and marriage is a lot. My parents were married and they're still married for so many years. Now, my dad lived in the UK, and he still does, in the United Kingdom, and my mom lived in Ghana. She goes to the UK and comes back. So before I'm meeting Kristin, I have personally been, let me say, a victim of two parents, one living home and one living abroad. Growing up right from birth, when I was born, I think less than 1 year old, my dad traveled to the UK, and he's been there since. He's been down a few times, I think. But my mom usually goes to the UK and comes back and forth. And that's how their relationship has been. So my mom raised us. And of course, she's a very tough woman. My dad has always been present through phone calls. And, if there's anything, before my dad gives you anything, he needs to consult my mom. So that father figure was also there, but it wasn't in passing. But they were still together. And now the two of them have united. She's finally moved completely, and they're together in the UK. So that's how I grew up. So I saw committed relationship at hand, despite the challenges and the circumstances. And my mom had a lot of tough time with her family, my dad's family people, because he wasn't present. So she had to, if she was somebody, she would have walked away from that marriage. But through those tough times, trust me, she stood firm. And we're all now solid, all sound and doing well. And now they're finally together after 20-something years. That's the kind of relationship that I was exactly.
Okay, so let me ask you that question. So since you've seen that type of relationship, would you want your relationship like that, or you want it to be different where you guys are in the same place together?
So I want it to be different. Of course, we had a conversation about that as well, because I have been a witness to that. Although they were able to stand the test of time in that, die hard, but I'm like, if we can do it different, I'd rather choose different. If I could roll back the hands of time, I prefer my mom and dad being together at one place, honestly. But at least with that spirit of being able to stay committed in that relationship, that was a lot of lessons that we got to learn growing up. Mm-hmm. Of course, in our conversations consistently, of course, I keep telling her that, look, based on what I've witnessed and what I've seen, okay, once I get involved with something, I don't care the barrier or anything, we're going to make it work. And of course, here we are today. It's actually worked, and it's been different from years that they had.
Yeah. Okay, Kristin, let us know what your views on marriage were, or what your experiences were.
Yeah, I mean, I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be married, and also I felt like at the point that I was in my life when I met Nii, I was also very focused, and I had been doing a lot of praying, and I had about my future spouse, and I had been doing a lot of workbooks about, okay, what's the type of person that I want to meet? What are the values? Like, I had thought about all of those things ahead of time. And I was very focused in the sense that I was like, I'm not entertaining any random people. Like, when I decide that I'm going to date somebody, I'm dating them with the thought of marriage in mind. And so, that was already in the back of my mind. And so I think I was very forward with that whoever I'm with, that it's not just for play. Like, I'm interested in being in a long-term thing. And when I do get married, I do not want for it to end in divorce. And so one of the things that stood out to me about his response to that was, he felt like, whatever the couple needed to do to remain, to keep the marriage going, and it just needed to be done. And that marriage was an everyday thing that both people have to put something into, and they have to be committed to making sure that it is sustained. And so I felt like, well, whatever comes at us, because life is going to come at you sometimes. Whatever life throws at us, with an attitude like that about remaining committed and, doing what you need to do to make sure that the marriage is sustained. I feel like that's the type of attitude, and that's the type of partner that I would want to enter into marriage with. Because it doesn't really matter, as long as you have somebody that's committed to doing the work, that's committed to, learning a person's needs as far as communication and making sure that it's sustained, that you can battle really anything. And so that was important to me. I had seen my parents, of course, being married previously and living in the same home. And I knew that being with my partner and not being apart and abroad for too long was important to me. Like, I didn't want to be away from my spouse for that long. So that's something that we talked about very early on. And we enjoy each other's presence anyway.
So, Tiffany, just to add something real quick. Now, in terms of some of the things that, some of the values for marriage and all of that, one key thing that we kept talking about, because before we arrived at the point where we were like, we want to really get married, we're doing a lot of lessons, reading a lot of different books, and doing a lot of different things, to get better. One of the things that stood out in my studies growing up was the fact that the day you stop learning, that's the day you start dying. So one of the things I told her, that if we can keep working on ourselves and our relationship every single time that we have a chance, there is nothing called divorce that can break us apart, because all the time you keep working on what you have. You keep developing yourself. So when the hard times come, you know how to navigate through that process. When we have that quality, that can take us, because sometimes strategies change. So you can know something today and tomorrow to be relevant to tomorrow's challenge. So I told her, if she's open to us learning and working on ourselves all the time, we're going to make it through any hard time. So that was one key thing.
So I like the way how you guys have started off, because a lot of people often, when they think about marriage, I think they think about the wedding, and I think sometimes they really don't think long term. I know your vows say to death do us part, but I really don't think people think that far ahead. And so the fact that you guys were intentional from the beginning, like, this is what I want, because you often see that too. You often see people dating and dating and dating, or they say I want to get married, but their partner doesn't, and they're still in that dating person with that person who they know the end goal is not the same. So the fact that you guys have an intention in the beginning and an end goal, and trying to work through the marriage throughout the middle, is very important, because you literally have to be with this person for the rest of your life, and you guys are young, so you guys hope to be together for the next 50, 60 years, you know. So I hope that you guys continue on the path that you guys are, about continually growing and loving each other, because you're gonna change. In 20 years, you guys are gonna be completely different people.
Yep.
So
It's
how do
true.
you guys continue to grow and be those people for each other, despite, changing in different ways? So I think
Yep.
that's very good of how you guys are starting out, and where you guys are at now. So let's
But I
move.
think, Tiffany, I
Okay.
think you should go to Facebook or YouTube and watch our wedding vows. I didn't say till death do us part. So mine was different.
Okay.
Mine, even death can do us part. So just
Okay, so okay, I have to go look
just
at
so you know.
the YouTube channel. So send me the link so I can send it.
I think
But what
it's on
did you
YouTube
Yeah.
already.
but
Yeah.
what did you say in those vows, to where you said basically that we would be together forever? What was the line that was said? Just give me one liner about you
So
being together for forever.
I think that I use some, like, what do you call it?
Euphemism.
Like I said, if love was the last thing was, if love was a verb, I hope to do it until not even death can do us part.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
that was the last line I remember. So I didn't say to death do us part. Just I wanted to
Okay, and you
clarify
guys
that.
wrote your own vows.
Yes,
We
we did.
did.
Okay.
I still have my vows anyway.
Okay,
On
so
my phone as well.
we'll have to look up look up exactly what he said. Yeah, I want to see the video as well. So let's move into, we talked about your families. So tell me, how did your families feel about you being married? Nii, was your family only wanted you to date an African woman? Kristin, did your family only want you to date an American man? How did your families like cope with the fact that you wanted to marry this person, whether it be your parents, your outside family members, or your friends? What was their reaction to you all getting married, or wanting to get married?
I'll go first. So I would say, I just think it was probably divine intervention that the last 10 days of me being in Ghana, my parents actually came to Ghana and spent 10 days just enjoying and seeing what Ghana was like. And, during those 10 days when they were there, Nii and I actually planned a trip for them. And so we did like a welcome for them, and he did a welcome at his mom's house where we had some elders and drumming, and it was an official welcome because I really wanted that to happen for my family. That was their first time coming to the continent, and for them to make it all the way out there when, I didn't think that my parents would get on a 10-hour flight, I was like, I have to welcome them, in a special way. And so
Wait, Kristen, that is a very, very long flight. I'm trying to get my mom, my dad will never fly, so that's a wrap. But I'm trying to get my mom to come, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that flight!" So yes, you have to give them a proper welcome after the long flight.
I had to. And so, they got a chance to really get to know Nii, and I would say that they immediately liked him, and I didn't tell them at all that we were attracted to each other, that we liked each other, that we were planning to get married. And I just wanted them to have an opinion about them, or to form an opinion about him without any biases in their mind. And I know my mom really liked him. I think in the first 2 hours of her meeting him, she was like, "Oh my God, you have to come visit us in the US." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, she really likes him." And so, you know, and she continued to really enjoy him during the time that they were there. And my dad did as well, you know, and I think it takes a lot that says a lot about him, because my dad is the type of person that enjoys being in control of, especially when we travel. Like, he likes to be in control of the itinerary. He likes to know where we're going. And he was in a place that, of course, he couldn't do that because he didn't know anything about Ghana. So he kind of just had to, you know, hand it over to Nii, this person that, you know, he didn't really know all that well, but he had heard a lot about, because during my time there, you know, I would always call home and I would say that I was either with, you know, my friend Mercy, the lady who I spoke about earlier, or either, you know, I was telling them that I was with Nii. So they kind of had heard about him and they were finally meeting him. And, you know, they really enjoyed him. And so after we returned back to the States, that is when, you know, I just couldn't stop crying. I cried at the airport when we were leaving Ghana, bawling tears. And I was like, oh, you're going to miss your friends. And I was like, she just doesn't get it yet. And then she's like, oh, you'll get to see them. You'll be able to come back. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And I want to say I cried for 2 more weeks after that. And finally, my mom was like, what is wrong with you? And I was just like, it's not that, like, you know, I really, really want to be with Nii and we want to get married. And that's when she's like, oh, wow, okay. So
this is why you've been crying the whole time.
Miss your friends. And so she's like, okay, well, she's like, well, we like him. So, you know, talk to your dad about it, and then, you know, we can see how it goes from there. So when I spoke to him, I think he was on board too, and he told me that he liked me as well. And so right from the very beginning, I felt like I had the support of my parents, who, you know, their support was important to me, and that was already taken care of.
Yeah, I think that was actually perfect. Like you said, how they came out there and got a chance to meet him before you can say anything about him. Because I don't know your parents, but I know most parents will probably be skeptic about a guy that their daughter met from Africa that they didn't meet. Let's just put it out there, right? So I think the fact that you came out there, I mean, that they came out there and were able to see his personality and see who he was, I think definitely helped in the relationship, because I'm sure at the end of the day, you're what we call grown, so you can do what you want to do. But of course, you would like the support of your parents, especially when you're making such a big decision about this. So I think that was actually great that they came down there. Okay, so we see that your parents were kind of on board. Was there anybody that was like, nah, I'm not really feeling this?
Well, there were, of course, people who, you know, express concern, or, you know, we want to just make sure that, you know, you're making the best decision. And I was like, okay, I understand that you all are concerned about me, or that you're concerned about my well-being. But, you know, it really helped, I think, that my parents had met him, because, you know, when people would say those things, it's like, well, no, we met him. You know, we know who this person is, and not just some random person. And, you know, he was helping out with the study abroad program that Kristin went on. So, you know, this is a legitimate person. And then it also came down to, you know, just what I was feeling in my gut. You know, I wasn't feeling anything negative about him. And I was the one who spent all that time with him when I was in Ghana. And those were the things that just kept me through all of that. And the same people who were, you know, concerned for my well-being are the ones who love him the most today.
sometimes that's how it works out. So that's good that they're kind of turned around.
Yes.
So Mr. Nii, sounds like you have a fan base now.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how your parents felt about Kristin.
Yeah, let me take you the African way. So in Africa, of course, you know, family is everything. You can't do anything without family, which is very, very, very important. It depends on also the family setting that you're from, but usually family is very key in relationships. So in Africa, in Ghana especially, we say it's not an individual that goes to marry. It's a family that marries. So you marry into a family and it's a family thing. So of course, my mom met her parents and met Kristin. Of course, they spent some time together. I know they had some long chats. My mom was actually showing her some of my childhood pictures and all of that. So they had a good time together. So she had met her. Of course, she liked her based on the interactions that they had had. But of course, my dad wasn't in the equation, so she hadn't met him yet. There were a few times that she had gotten a chance to speak to him, but they hadn't met yet.
In person,
and,
yeah.
In person. Not as well. I hadn't told them anything as well, because it's just, she and I trying to figure out whether or not we want to do this or make this happen and all of that. But once we crossed that line, and I had to tell them, of course, I told my mom, and my mom didn't have a problem with that. Again, she was already in a situation where she was in a long distance marriage, if you like. So she kind of didn't really have too much. She didn't have any reservations, I should say. Then I called my dad and spoke to my dad, and he's the not a difficult one, but he's a disciplinarian. Now my dad, of course, in all his years in living abroad, when my mom was in Ghana, he never married, not a single time. Over 20-something years, he never married. He makes sure he called every single day. I can tell you for a fact, from the time that I remember, my dad calls every single day. So he was always like present. Now, so he doesn't play, and he's lived outside. So he's just like somebody who's like a foreigner, kind of. He understands how the system works and all of that. The first thing he asked me was, am I sure that this is what I want? Because he doesn't want me disappointing somebody else's daughter. And he told me, of course, their story and the promise he made to my mom before he traveled, that he was never going to disappoint her. And if she agrees to be with him, he's never going to leave her. And he stayed true to that. They're 60-something years now, and they're still together. He went so many years, he did everything possible to get her, and they're together now. My point is that my dad consistently, before eventually coming on board, wanted to make sure, he spoke to my brother, to my mom, to make sure that this was serious and that he doesn't want any kind of disappointment where you cause somebody pain. Because he told me a lot of stories of people he has seen from outside where other people had come from the UK to get them and they had disappointed them. And so many different things had happened to them. He does not want that. If you're not sure that this is what you want, don't initiate it. So he kept asking me, go ahead.
Nisa, I actually really like that. I mean, I like the fact that in America, sometimes we be like, oh, these people are in our business when it comes to relationships and when it comes to outside people. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he questioned you himself, like, hey, I don't want you to disappoint this, young lady whom he had never really met, I think shows that that's very important and a valuable upbringing. Kristin, for you, that would be good to have in a person like that, where the father is actually checking in as well. So kudos to your father for actually making you accountable for being a stand-up man to this woman. So I really appreciate that fact about him.
Fast forward, he now tells me that he wants to talk to Chris and confirm that what I'm telling him is actually the case before anything. So then I give the number and then he calls her. Of course, she was here in the US and he was in the UK. I was in Ghana. He calls her, talks to her to find out if what I'm telling him is actually true and it's serious. And she confirmed that, yes, it is. When she confirmed, then he came back to me that, okay, she's confirmed. So then, of course, all the advice and all of that came. But right from there is when we had like a proper go ahead. And like how we do in Africa, the man's father has to reach out usually to the lady's father and tell them that this is what the son has found. And this is what he's saying that he's interested in. Because it's a family thing. Usually that's what happens. There may be circumstances that it may not happen, but usually this is how it happens. So my dad calls her in order to reach out to the dad. And eventually he managed to get him and told him that this is what my son has said, that my son had met your daughter and he's interested in your daughter. So he wants to, of course, reach out to let him know and see what his thoughts are. Because if your father doesn't give you a blessing, that's a disaster most of the times for the marriage. So her dad confirmed it. And once her dad confirmed it, we had a green light to now figure out how we're going to make this work. So yeah, that's how my family took it, and that's how they came on board to make everything happen.
Let's go ahead and talk about becoming Mr. and Miss. So tell us about how did you propose, or when was the wedding, or we kind of talked about the vows a little bit, but let's kind of go into the actual marriage or the wedding ceremony rather.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very non-traditional, and I think that sort of set the tone for who we are as a couple and just where we're headed and the theme that has kind of happened since we've been together. I feel like it just was, everything has just been, for me, I would say for me, it wasn't how I envisioned things happening. So it was very private when he asked me about marrying him. It was just me and him. And we were in the room.
Was it with a fake ring?
No,
okay,
you didn't. I don't even think you had a ring at the time. And he didn't have a ring at the time. And he just asked. And I was like, yeah. And for a long time, I didn't even have a ring. And it didn't bother me one bit. But I knew that, all of those things don't really matter. Somebody can buy you the biggest ring, but it's about, not about the size of the ring and all of that. It's about what that person really wants.
But at this time that we're talking about proposing, we had not involved families and all of that yet.
Yeah.
So that was just between the two of us.
Yeah.
Based on how we had built and gotten to know ourselves and thought we wanted to do this. So I officially made that proposal with the spiritual ring.
The spiritual ring.
Because I didn't have a physical one at the time. So this was before we now involved parents and all of that.
And I would have to say, let's thank God for Kristin that she's down to earth, because some women be like, where's the ring at? Can't do this, blah, blah, blah. So thank God God was looking out for you with the ring that you had.
He was. I think he was. Honestly, he had my back.
That's true. Yeah. Some people would have been like, well, come see me later when you got
right. Exactly.
I agree with you, but that also sometimes tells the value or what matters to people, what really matters to people, so because
Kristin, show your ring, because I see Nii's ring. He has the ring now. Where's your ring at? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, but I have it now.
Yeah, that's a very expensive ring, actually. Real done. So eventually it pays off.
So
okay,
go ahead, Tiffany.
No. So because you ended up, so that was the private, proposal between you all two. So it wasn't a big glamorous thing or anything like that, that's very special as well, between the two of you. So now let's fast forward to, how did he end up coming here? How did that the marriage part go, or the ceremony? Let's get into that.
So before I'll let her talk about how the process and everything, but before we had a conversation, because I was living in Ghana, she was living in the US. So we had a conversation about what's possible. We had to evaluate. Are we willing to move to come and live in Ghana, to live in the US? All of those conversations, because at the end of the day, we had to take a decision. Now, we had to also make sure that it's not about, the idea of somebody traveling and eventually disappointing the other person, because all of those things were questions we had to bring to the table and answer. And we had to look at, if we're building in Ghana, we're building in the US, beginning, what could be a little faster and based on where everybody is at the time. And we finally came to a conclusion between the two of us that, we can initiate from the US and then we could see how we could spread out. So that's how we came to that conclusion of we making the move, of me being the one to come and join my wife here instead of my wife coming to join me in Ghana. Because in Ghana, when you marry, it's a woman that moves to go join the man wherever he is. But in this case, I had to move and come here based on one or two evaluations, decisions that we had to take early part of our relationship. So then the process, she can talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was game though. I was game to move to Ghana because I just had enjoyed my time and I could see myself living there. But of course, you know, when we thought about it, you know, I still had some time left of law school, and, you know, there was a lot of different factors that played into it at the time. We decided that it would be great for him to move instead. And so we actually initiated, shortly after all of the family and all of that had spoken and they were on board, we initiated the process. And someone had advised us early on in the process that, you know, it could take a lot longer if we were to file via the marriage route. For instance, some people, you know, travel to Ghana, have the ceremony there, and then the person comes back and then they file and say, okay, I want my spouse to join me in the US. But then they said that it would be a lot faster if I filed for him to come as a fiance wanting to be married. And so that, of course, was initiated. And then I want to say about a year after, maybe not even a full year, so a little less than a year.
So you guys did the fiance route?
Yes. Yeah, the K one.
Okay, so you guys didn't apply to go on 90 Day Fiance. Why not?
We didn't, because all those people on 90 Day Fiance, they end up getting working out. And I decided, but somebody joked. My friend was like, why don't you guys apply to be on that show? I'm like, I don't know that.
Well, at least if you guys would have went on the show, you guys could have seen them. They could have had an example of how this is for real and how we're really intended to stay in this marriage. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's good to know. So you guys did the 90 Day Fiance round. It took, you said, less than a year for him to actually come over.
I think it's like 8 or 9 months after you file or something like that. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then from there, we did a small little intimate ceremony, you know, with my parents. And then after that, a year after that, we had a big wedding with his family and my family present. Yeah.
And that was super cool that his family was able to come, but they were living in the UK, right?
Yes.
Ghana, UK, yes. Some from Ghana, some from the UK, yes. So we did a traditional ceremony. We did a Ghanaian ceremony first, and then from there we did the white one as well. You know, they're not a white, the church ceremony.
Okay, yes.
We did a garden type. Yeah, we didn't do it.
What do you say is a significant difference from a traditional Ghanaian wedding versus an American wedding?
Yeah, so I mean the traditional one, again, it highlights the idea of families getting married. So in the traditional one, what happens is that the man's family sits and the lady's family also sit as well. And then, of course, the man's family has to come with gifts. We call it the bride price. You have to come with gifts. Some for the parents, I mean the lady's mom, some for the lady's dad, and then some for the lady. If the lady has a sibling, like a male sibling, you have to give something to the male sibling because they have supported their sister, you know, and the parents have supported their daughter for their daughter to grow. So you come and pay some price to have that bride. So during the traditional setting, that is what we come and actually do to acknowledge and show gratitude for the woman that you're coming to marry, for all the work that has gone into her from the family. So you come bearing gifts, you present those gifts, and then of course they'll try to find out if you can recognize your spouse. Yeah, so once you're able to identify your spouse, and they ask the lady's parents if they approve of this marriage and all of that. And once they said they approve of this marriage in the traditional setting, then they hand the lady over to the man. And then of course, officially, they are married traditionally. So that's how different. The difference is the significance of what transpires between the two families.
Okay. And so how long have you guys been married now?
2 years and some months.
Yeah. So officially in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay, so officially in 2017. So when did you guys
We
do
have
the tradition?
so many anniversaries, actually.
We got 2 anniversaries.
What do you guys celebrate all of these anniversaries?
So
We do.
we got married officially 1st October
Yeah.
2017. And then we did the traditional on the 17th of August. And then we did a white one on the 18th of August, 2018.
Okay.
Exactly. So those are the 3 official anniversaries.
All those
that
anniversaries.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like it's okay to celebrate love like 3 times.
Yeah.
Why not? Okay, so congratulations on, we'll say, 2 or 3 years of marriage.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. And so tell me more about your business that you guys have started.
Okay. So I think the idea for Certified Africa, which is our business, it started right around the time that my parents came to Ghana, and they really, really enjoyed their time. And I mean, that was something that we put together for them, because something else kind of just fell through. The person who was about to take them on a trip, literally 2 days before they are to plan this itinerary for them, they called me and they said, "Hey, we just can't do it anymore." And I'm just like, "What do you mean? My parents are about to come. They need this trip," but they weren't able to do it. So Nii calls his boss, and at that time she gives him the week off. Him and I get together, we put our heads together, and we plan this itinerary, and we put together this trip for them. And so they enjoy the trip, and they tell me, my dad is like, "Well, why don't you all start putting together some trips for some people that we know back home? We had a good time. I'm sure other people have a good time." And so I was saying, I was thinking the same thing. I really had a good time. I know a lot of people that would want to come. And Nii was like, "Yeah, well, we could definitely do this." And so it was kind of like something we were thinking about. And during the whole year that he was in Ghana, and I was in the US, we talked about it. And one of the first things that he did when he came to the States was to start working on the business and the business plan. So there was this boot camp that came up, entrepreneurship boot camp, where you came up with an idea. So he goes and he starts going to the sessions. And I attended a few of the sessions when I wasn't doing work and all of that hard at work. And we come up with this concept and idea for Certified Africa. And the niche that we chose was to expose the African diaspora to business opportunities and investment opportunities in Africa, because a lot of times they just come for the culture and they never return. But there are so many opportunities within business that are there right under people's noses, and they don't realize it. And, one big thing for me was, that I told him, I was like, well, the big thing for Black people in America is building generational wealth. And for me, building generational wealth doesn't just have to do with money, but having money allows for people to really bring out their talents and really serve out their purpose. Because when they don't have to focus on working a job or focus on all of these things that distract them from their purpose, that is when they are able to see their true and full potential. And so we want people to come and see what entrepreneurship can do for you. When you step out of that and go out on your own, you suddenly have time to connect genuinely with people, to establish relationships, and just be a better human being. That is what, I feel like people should be aspiring for, to do generational wealth, because it just liberates you in a way that is unexplainable. So, you know.
So, Certified Africa, of course, based on the conversations that she's talking about that we had in Ghana, when I came here, we started having these conversations and initiated all this business and all of that. The whole idea was, Okay, we started with family and friends. I want to take a few family and friends to show them I'm in Ghana and all of that. But at a point, throughout going through the boot camp and all of that, having various conversations, realized that this was bigger than just family and friends. I remember one time we went to the beach in Miami and we're having a conversation. We took our laptop, we're planning, thinking about our business and everything. And I remember we talking about the fact that, like, we're talking about Black people in America overall and how huge it would be if we can get all these Black people to be involved with the continent where they're doing different things. They're not just coming to have fun at the beach and club and all of that, but they're doing something substantial during their visit and how they could contribute to the continent. We were having these conversations and we're like, we could make Certified Africa something bigger than family and friends. And that's when we began to expand the whole idea to involve other people other than family and friends and make it a real business. And I was telling her that, look, in the spaces that I used to work in Ghana, I used to work in a government space. I was privy to so many meetings. And most of these business meetings, it had a lot of people that didn't look like myself and my wife. So I'm like, look, where are the Black people that look like me that are out there? And when I came to America, in fact, I saw so many of them. And I'm like, how can we expand our business to not just showing people the culture, the fun and all of that, but we always find a way of giving them some value in terms of business so they can also be involved and have a stake in the country or that they visit in Africa.
So you guys make very good points. So to Kristin's points, when we talk about poverty and we talk about generational, you didn't mention generational curses, but I just think about the track of sometimes our people, we just don't have wealth behind us. And so sometimes we start off in poverty and our kids are in poverty and our kids are in poverty. So the fact that you guys want to do something where they can actually start a business in Ghana is actually very great. And so I know that when you take them on the trips, yes, where they can invest as well. And Nii, you made a great point as well. Sometimes when you go to these African countries, I'm like, why is there, well, I'm not going to name any names or any races, but I'm like, why are these other people owning businesses, but our own people are not there? So people always like to say that Africa is poor, but Africa is very rich. Hence, i.e., people are over there investing in it. And that tells you already where the resources at. It's like there's diamonds in places in Africa, but we're mining for them and not getting paid for them. You know what I'm saying? So I like the fact that you guys are trying to bring people back and add a component of wealth building and investments and business and all that and those type of things. And honestly, in America, I think working 9 to 5, I think we're always working to accomplish somebody else's goals and dreams, hence why we're at work, right? But the fact that I can own my own business and I can do what I need to do to gain my wealth, like that's super important to where I can be able to do what I want to do. So I actually absolutely really love your idea of your
Tiffany,
Certified Africa.
Just to add, that it's very important that people understand that when you have with few dollars, American dollars, you're able to have a lot of impact in terms of business wise in Africa. And that's the advantage. Because one will wonder why are the people there not starting the businesses and all of that? It's about the value of the money. So once you have American dollars, it carries a lot more value. So with a little, you're able to do more on the continent. And that's why it's very key and very crucial, that especially for Black people here. And of course, other races are doing it, but we are not. So it's very important. With the power that we have with the American dollar, we can do a lot of things and have a lot of impact back on the continent. Yeah.
So that's very, very true. So this has been a lovely, lovely interview. So I want your last thoughts, your last comments to the people that are going to watch this video. So what are your last thoughts? It can be either on marriage, relationships, dating, or the business. Let's give them our final thoughts.
So my final words, I'll start from the marriage, since that's where we started from. Of course, I met my wife in Ghana, or she met me in Ghana, and that's how we connected. I want to say there are a lot of amazing people in Ghana, especially a lot of amazing men. There are a lot of amazing women too in Ghana that you can build genuine relationship with. And at least if you trust them, it could lead to a lot of great places, because we're having a good time and I'm sure we'll go very far. So I just want to point that out, that people need to be open-minded when they visit. when they visit. Because I meet a lot of women here in America that are very good women with good hearts, that I believe that they're very good men out there that they can meet and have something great going on for them. So that's one thing I can say with that. Now, and then of course, back to business, Certified Africa, people can look at for Certified Africa. We're doing a lot of amazing things. You can travel with us to Ghana and meet amazing people as well, build relationships with people, business relationships, and be exposed to opportunities on the continent. So they can check our website and everything. I'm sure Kristin will talk more about that. Yeah, but marriage is a beautiful thing. And if you have the chance to meet somebody, yes, enjoy it as you go along and learn every day. And I'm sure you get better. The more you learn, the more you get better. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say go with your gut. Don't be afraid. If I had let fear taken over me or take over me at that point in time, and what everybody else was saying, and I ignored my gut, I may not have met my husband, or I may not have ended up being with my husband. And so, I'm thankful that I took that leap. And it's the same leap and fear that I had to get over when we decided to go full time into entrepreneurship. So my key thing is don't let fear hold you back from experience in life. If you have something in your gut that you feel, do it. And so, like Nii said, come on one of our trips. It's amazing. It's not your average experience. You can find us online at www.certifiedafrica.com and at Certified Africa on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
And Tiffany, just to add something real quick that came to mind. Now, a lot of people, in terms of relationships and all of that, when it comes to Africa and all of that, there are a lot of stories out there that people always put out that, okay, this person married this person and something happened, it didn't work. There are a lot of good stories as well where people met people and it's worked. Some of them have grown old together. So I say you have to determine what your story will be. So don't look at the stories other people tell you, friends and all of that. Oh, look, this person tried it, it didn't work. That's not your story. Yours may be better. Maybe your spouse is out there and you're missing it because of all these negative stories that you're hearing. There's some bad guys out there, but I'm telling you, there's some very good ones out there too. You just need to be open-minded and trust God, and it will work.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for this interview. It was lovely talking to you. I want you to check out the blog. Some people are visual people, some people like to read, so we now are going to have both. This will be on the actual YouTube channel. And we also have them on the blog as well. I think I titled it Love Law. I can't remember what I titled it now. Law of Attraction. That's what's the name. That's what the title of the blog is. Law of Attraction. And it's the first series on the love abroad in Ghana. So definitely check out the blog. Nii, you got to read the blog. This is about you. So I need you to read that.
Yeah,
and let us know. Let us know what you right. Let us know how you enjoyed it. And hopefully we can have Kristin and Nii on our live Facebook as well. But again, check out the blog at www.tiffany-travels. Check out me on Instagram at Sweet Tippies, Twitter at Sweet Tippies, and Pinterest at Sweet Tippies as well. And again, I'm so happy to meet Nii and Kristin. And this was a wonderful interview.
Thank you for having us.
You're so welcome. And we can't wait to do it again. And I don't know if our paths are going to cross in Africa. I also do group trips as well, but I don't know if we're going to be there at the same time, but if we are, hopefully we can all meet up at some point in time. So it would be good to see you all again and meet me in person. So that would be super, super cool. So again, thank you all so much, and you guys have a wonderful evening, okay?
You too.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Stop.